Welcome back to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast Special Midweek edition of the Premier League. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey. Delighted to welcome, as always, this season, Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. Guys, it's just dawned on me. It's been a 100% record, I think, this year on the Weekend Football Podcast. That is, Adrian, which is quite impressive. No bye week for the lads, and you're still going strong.
Yeah, I've run out of money. I can't go on holiday. I can't go on holiday anymore. I'm out of cash. But no, it's good. It's good. Well, it's not one we want to miss, is it, Mark? It's been a good crack as always, and yeah, we've got a few winners. So happy days.
No, Mark, listen, I enjoy every week, but 100% record, you always take a couple of weeks. Somewhere in the season, there's a week or two. So quite an impressive 100% record so far. So there's no pressure on you.
Oh, I prefer the pressure, to be honest, Dan. Yeah, but it's got to enjoy the wins because it's a difficult game we're in. So obviously there will be losing streaks and there will be difficult times, as there always is throughout a campaign. So you've got to enjoy the wins, but also be level-headed enough to realise that you're only as good as your next best bet.
Getting into manager speak. I love
it. One bet at a time, basically. Yeah.
Protection and preservation is the aim of the game for me.
No, wise words. And joking aside, it is a long season, and we always talk about it, not just in Safer Gambling Week, but every week. So please gamble responsibly. But really looking forward to covering this midweek card with the guys. Before we get going, on YouTube, if you do hit that like button and subscribe completely for free, best way to catch all our content, not just football, but horse racing and, of course, NFL leading up to the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. So do check that out, and check out the Match with Betting Exchange on the odds checker grid throughout UK football in particular. We are invariably the best price there. So check out Match with Betting Exchange for all the latest markets. And we will start with our 4 games, incidentally, that we're going to cover. Forest, Arsenal, Villa versus Newcastle, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Wolves versus Manchester United. When we'll start with a tricky tie for Arsenal away to Nottingham Forest, and check on the betting that we currently have on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Forest are 9.0 underdogs here. Arsenal 143. The draw is available at 5.2. Both teams to score, yes, is 202. Very rare we've seen yes, the underdog in that market this season. The Asian handicap line sees Forest get a 1.25 goal head start, and the goal line is 2.5. So, Adrian, we'll start with you. I don't know, when I saw, doing a bit of prep for this, and I saw Forest at 9.0 this morning, it sort of leapt off the page a little bit for me. But I'm guessing Arsenal are looking to get back onto some sort of track. Obviously, they had that win against Palace, and now the winter break in between that as well.
Yeah, I think the odds are a little bit generous to Arsenal in terms of the favouritism. I would have Forest a little bit shorter than that, and Arsenal not quite as short as 1.4, not least because it's been a bogey ground. And I know a lot of people will scoff at that and say, it doesn't make any difference. But there's been a couple of no-shows really in a row from Arsenal at that stadium, and these things can play on a player's mind. It can. And Forest's players, on the flip side, those that have been involved in those games, will take great heart and confidence from them. And the game plan, basically, that Steve Cooper implemented on both occasions, it has to be something that Nuno Espirito Santo has to look at ahead of the game. He did a great job at nullifying Arsenal. You'd be silly not to at least look back at those videos and think, okay, we can bring a bit of that into our game. So I think this is a tough game for Arsenal, obviously boosted by that 5-0 against Crystal Palace. I think it was a good fixture. Palace were rotten on the day, but yeah, Arsenal will be lifted. I can't back Arsenal at the price, and I don't really want to back Nottingham Forest. That's kind of where I'm at, because I also think that Arsenal are likely to win. I just don't think they should be as short a price as they are. I think Arsenal have got it within them to win this time. Nuno, even though he might mimic some of Cooper's tactics, I suspect he'll be a little bit more bolder, or try to have a little bit more of the ball, maybe. Recent form suggests that they're much more enterprising, much more adventurous, much more attacking than they were. But I still think the visit of Arsenal will maybe get them back to more of a defensive mindset. I don't think they're going to come out and try and attack against the Gunners. That's not how I see it. I'm going to go with unders, under 2.5 goals. It's a great price. It's a really, really good price, in my opinion. 2.3 you can get on it. I'll tell you why I think it's a good price. Arsenal have got, haven't created very much against Nottingham Forest on their last couple of visits. 6 of 10 Arsenal away games have gone under 2.5 this season. In a campaign that's full of goals, that's striking, isn't it? That's a little bit unusual. And Forest as well, half of their home games have gone under as well. But the one sort of stat, the number that really stands out to me is if you exclude the Bournemouth game early on in the season, 4-0, and if you exclude the crazy Luton game, 4-3, then Arsenal really haven't scored very many goals on the road this season. They've scored 7 goals in the other 8 away matches. So they've not really cut loose very often. It's been a bit of a grind for them. And I think this might be a grind as well. I think Forest will be a little bit more circumspect than they have been. They'll have a formula. And I think it might take a little bit for Arsenal to break them down. So, yeah, I think Arsenal will win. But I don't see this one being carnage. I think it'll be quite a cagey game, and going to buck the trend that Nuno has sort of started with at Nottingham Forest. When I cast my mind back actually to Nuno's Wolves against Arsenal, they always gave us a decent game. They were tough opponents, and I think this will be a difficult match for Arsenal. So I'm seeing a 1-0 or 2-0 win potentially, but instead I'm going to play it safe and go for under 2.5 goals at a nice price.
Okay, 2.3 under 2.5 goals. Mark, Adrian's expecting a cagey affair at the City Ground. Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, I enjoyed that because I'm kind of assuming a similar sort of match will unfold at the City Ground. I was quite pro Forest in the last Premier League game, that trip to Brentford, which ended in a 3-2 defeat. And we didn't know at the time, but Anthony Elanga and Morgan Gibbs-White were going to be missing. They came out of a contention on the eve of the game, added to an already kind of lengthy unavailability list, and it left them pretty short at Brentford. But those 2 players are due back. Divock Origi is due back as well. So in forward areas, Forest are nearly at full complement, bar obviously Taiwo Awoniyi. The AFCON contingent is still missing though, so there's 6 players across the defensive midfield, which isn't ideal. But you've got Murillo and Omobamidele probably filling in at centre half. That's probably the weakness of Forest, but apart from that, I think they're okay elsewhere. And I think what we'll get from Forest is the usual sort of tenacity, physicality in those midfield areas to try and get the destroyers out and try and disrupt Arsenal as best as possible. And they do have a great knack for raising their game as underdogs, under the lights especially. So, we've seen Forest topple some big teams, not just this season, but also last year. They've beaten basically all of the big 6 since promotion, bar Spurs. I know they held City last year. They didn't beat them, but even still, that was held City this year or last year? Anyway, they've held City at the City Ground since promotion. And obviously they've got a decent pedigree against Arsenal too. So I have to admit, I did find this a tricky betting heat. At the beginning, I was sort of looking towards Arsenal and under 4.5 goals because I was impressed by their performance against Palace. Don't expect this game to escalate into a high-scoring game. But something I just can't shake with Forest when these kind of prices with these kind of head starts on the handicaps. And this will be Arsenal's, second game in 23 days. So they should be well rested. But at the same time, are they going to be at their fluent best? Too many question marks really for me. So I'm going to back Forest with 1.5 goal start on the handicap. Because you can kind of anticipate the performance we'll get from Forest. They do relish these underdog matches when they're not expected to. Well, they are expected by their home supporters, but the market doesn't expect them to come out firing. And I think they'll enjoy playing without the ball, playing on the counter-attack and trying to disrupt Arsenal as best as possible. I think they will try and replicate the Cooper game plan, master plan. They did so against Manchester United and had success. I just kind of building on to what Adrian was talking about with Arsenal in forward areas away from home, but I haven't been overly confident and trustworthy with Arsenal's performances away from home recently either. Now they won their opening 3 away days, but since then they've won twice in 7 away matches. The match at Luton, which was, it could have been anything really. Like they just fell apart from set pieces, and then the same at Brentford, which wasn't completely polished, was it? So neither of those matches were won comfortably. And actually, the win at Bournemouth earlier in the campaign, when the Cherries were still trying to figure out things under Iraola, was their only success away from home by 2 goals or more in the Premier League this season, which I found semi-surprising. So whilst we know Arsenal are well capable of putting Forest to the sword, there's no doubt about that, and they could well win this game quite comfortably, just not willing to back them with these kind of short or high handicap hurdles. Forest have only lost by 2 goals or more 3 times at home since promotion. It's only occurred once this season. So, I think if Forest can score here, suddenly you've got a really good opportunity of landing the handicap. Arsenal have kept 1 away clean sheet since September. A home goal requires Arsenal to score 3 goals or more for the bet to fail. So, yeah, similarly, I'm expecting it to be relatively nip and tuck, quite tight, quite attritional. I'm just kind of banking on Forest to keep it competitive, really. So, Forest plus 1.5, but I couldn't put you off the under 2.5 goals either, to be fair.
Okay, 178 plus 1.5 on the Asian handicap for the bigger price. And the first one of today's episode, we will take under 2.5 goals in this game at 2.3. Moving on to second game, Aston Villa versus Newcastle. And I'm really looking forward to this because essentially we've got all 3 results covered here between Mark and Adrian. So this is going to be a ding-dong battle to decide where your money's going to go. But it's Villa 199, Newcastle 3.9. The draw is available at 4.1. The Asian handicap line sees Newcastle get a half goal head start at even money 2.0. Both teams to score yes is 157. And the goal line for this game is under 3.5, 167. The under. Mark O'Haire. Yeah, I mentioned it's Villa or Newcastle double chance basically is what we're going up against. What side are you on?
Well, it was very nearly no bet, so but I'm gonna say Aston Villa at evens. I think on the surface of it, you have to consider Villa at evens. Almost take a don't complicate it approach by backing them to win. After all, they have won 16 of the last 17 home games, a run that started almost 12 months ago. So, I think it's very fair to sort of suggest that Villa at evens is backable regardless. But I've been a little bit put off by recent performances. The 0-0 at Everton before the break. It was curious, wasn't it? I think if VAR hadn't kind of disallowed that goal for offside, I think that game could have exploded, but it didn't. It kind of just ran its course thereafter. There wasn't a huge amount of production from either team, and I think Villa had sort of struggled and stumbled over the line against Burnley and Sheffield United previously, had that turnaround defeat at Manchester United. However, I still have them as the 3rd best team at home this season on underlying metrics. They have been running a little bit hot this season. That can't be denied. But, they have also been putting in some very, very good performances. And I would just wonder whether the break will allow them the opportunity to re-energise. I know they were involved in FA Cup action on Friday night. But, I just found them a little bit difficult to dismiss at evens if I was to have a bet, because whilst I'm wary of Newcastle, I think they have turned the corner a little bit. The performance against Man Utd was very, very good. I sort of promoted them as a +1 underdog that day and felt pretty gutted to see them lose that match because I thought their application and performance levels were very, very good, but they just happened to be beaten by a sublime football team with the best footballer in the world coming off the bench and providing some, otherworldly kind of contributions. But that's Man City for you. That's Kevin De Bruyne. But the negatives of Newcastle are quite stark, really. It's 4 straight league defeats. It's 3 goals or more conceded in 3 of those 4 defeats. They've actually returned the fewest points over the last 7 league games since the start of December, winning once, losing 6. Away from home, they've been largely pretty dreadful. Exclude the smashing they gave out to Sheffield United. They've lost 7 of 10 away days. But I guess you could look at the performances against Man City in the Champions League as well. This team is capable of better. Injuries and unavailability has always been an issue, continues to be so. Not so much now. They've had a few players come back and will return to the squad. But 7 defeats in 10, excluding the Blades and Villa's ridiculously good home form. I just thought if I'm going to be involved, I have to make it a Villa-based bet at evens. But in all honesty, it's probably a no-bet game for me.
Okay, so Adrian, you've become the favourite here now. All you have to do, it's a penalty kick for you. So just take it away with a decent case for the double chance and away you go.
I can't argue with anything that Mark said, because if you look at the raw numbers, you think, well, why Villa even money or just under? They keep winning at home, or they, all but 1 game out of 17. It's incredible. And Newcastle, pretty. They've toiled, haven't they? 5 away points in the entire campaign. 3 of those came at Bramwell Lane. It's not been good. They've conceded loads of goals on the road as well, Newcastle. But for me, Villa are in the midst of a bit of a dip. I don't think they're as sharp as they were. I just don't. Obviously, a couple of goalless draws in a row. Before that, they had that 1-0 win at Middlesbrough. that they sort of scraped through. They only just got past Burnley, didn't they? That they almost drew that game. They did draw. A really sort of laborious performance against Sheffield United. So I just think, and Watkins as well, who's been so good, has seen his chances dry up a little bit. They've not created as much for him of late. So yeah, I just feel they've hit a bit of a flat spot. And for Newcastle, I think that performance against City was really good and really encouraging. And obviously they won at Sunderland in the Cup, won well, won at Fulham in the Cup, winning well. And I just think that those 3 games might have given them a little bit of a lift. They've obviously got their first choice back 4 back together now as well. And I think that's important with Burn and, Trippier and, Shah and Botman. So, yeah. And I just feel that they can be competitive in this game. I really do. Obviously, first game of the season, they absolutely annihilated in Villa as well. And you think, well, stylistically, are they a good match for Villa? Obviously, with the pace of Isak to run in behind that high line, you've got Anthony Gordon as well, rapid. I can see Newcastle causing them a few problems in the game. So yeah, even though the raw numbers over the course of this season say it's Villa all day long, I think it might be a moment to oppose Villa and to maybe go with an alternative. So yeah, I was just excuse me, I was just interested to see that the draw and Newcastle was available at the same price, 1.98. So I can get a lot more different final scores on side for the same price, and that's what I want to do.
Okay, yeah, we'll lean for that bet. We'll go for draw or Newcastle. Effectively, double chance, 198 currently on the Match Betting Exchange. The choice for Adrian Clarke. Mark looking at Villa there, but it's a small lean there too for him. But we'll go to the third game, which is Liverpool versus Chelsea. And plenty of talking points going into this game. We'll take a look at the betting that we currently have on the Match Betting Exchange. Liverpool 161 favourites at home to Chelsea, who are 5.8. The draw is 4.7. Both teams to score, again, regular team this season, yes, is 159. The Asian handicap line sees Chelsea get a 1-goal head start at around even money. And the goal line here is quite high, 3.5, under at 178. Adrian Clarke, it's now become a where were you moment. What were you doing when you heard the Jurgen Klopp news?
Nothing very exciting. I was just sat here doing a bit of work. But yeah, it was quite something, wasn't it? Quite something. So yeah, it's been a bit of a love-in, which is slightly grated. I don't know why. It's just, I mean, I like Klopp. I think he is a great manager, a brilliant manager. But yeah, the love-in's been a little bit over the top. But I get it. It's all-consuming job, isn't it? Football management, and I think it can wear you down. And if he's feeling the effects of that, I don't blame him for stepping aside. It's not as if he won't be short of options after he's had a little breather, is it? So yeah, I get it. And it might be time for Liverpool to have that sort of regen moment. Salah maybe on his way. Virgil van Dijk not getting any younger. So yeah, they need to. Yeah, maybe he just hasn't got the energy to rebuild yet another Liverpool team. So yeah, I get it. In terms of this game, I've got a really good stat for you, which is kind of the inspiration behind my pick. Chelsea have not trailed at half-time all season. They haven't been behind, which I find quite remarkable. 14 of their 2021 matches have been level at the break, and they've obviously been winning the rest of them. Haven't been behind at the break. They've only conceded 10 first half goals as well. I think Villa and Arsenal are the only teams with fewer. So they're actually pretty solid in terms of the way that they start games. And you've got to be solid in a first half at Anfield against the leaders. You've got to set up and be tough to break down. And I do think that midfield trio of Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez and Conor Gallagher is pretty solid now. I think they've knitted together quite nicely, and they're starting to play well enough as a unit, that we would expect from them, because they're all good players individually. So yeah, so my pick here, I'll cut to the chase, is draw at halftime, Liverpool to win the game. It's an interest choice, really. I just thought the price was juicy, really, at 4.9. So if anyone wants to have a little bit of fun with it, I thought this might be the best way in because of that Chelsea stat of not being behind at half-time. Liverpool, by the way, have only led in 7 of 21 matches at half-time this season. So we know that they've gone and won a heck of a lot of matches, but at the break, only a third of the time have they been leading. So that's where I'm coming from. Ultimately, over the course of 90 minutes, I'd have to lean towards Liverpool. I mean, they have got 28 points from a possible 30 at Anfield. Chelsea, away from home, have conceded quite a lot of goals. They've conceded 2 goals in their last 4 away games. And before that, they conceded 4 at Newcastle. So you can't yet fully trust them over the course of 90 minutes, even though I do think Chelsea are improving. So, yeah, I think ultimately Liverpool are the better team and should win the game. It's at Anfield, but I can see it being, one where they have to be patient before they open up Chelsea in the second half. So draw Liverpool for me at 4.9.
Okay, stats-based approach there. When Adrian Clarke says, I've got a stat for you, it's either a proper stat like that or a stat where he's half taking the mick out of Mark. So I'm wondering which way that would go.
By the way, as well, that Chelsea do have a good record against Liverpool. I should have mentioned that. 4 goalless draws prior to the 1-1 draw on the opening weekend of this season. So it's quite a while since Liverpool did beat them. So that will give Chelsea an element of confidence, I guess, heading to Anfield.
Okay, Mark, bit of a we'll get to your bet here, but an interesting question here from Owen McIntosh on YouTube, just basically asking about do you expect late money for Chelsea? And we see this a lot. Maybe you can talk more generally. You don't have to talk specifically about Chelsea, but we do see this a lot in Premier League games. Not necessarily off the base of the team's pick, but maybe half an hour after that, in the half an hour before kickoff, all of a sudden there's a bit of change in the odds. The sharp money comes. It's hard to explain really where that sort of money comes from, but there's loads of sort of Asian markets and stuff betting a lot on this based on numbers. So just give the listeners a bit of would you pay any attention to that, and what's sort of involved with that late sharp money?
Yeah, I think you've always got to pay attention to the sharp money. Quite often comes in that period, as you mentioned, or otherwise overnight on a Friday into Saturday morning. As you say, it's driven by big syndicates, big money men out in Asia who are able to put huge amounts of money down and trade the market over there. So, I would always be well aware of what the market is thinking and where it's heading. Chelsea have been one of their favourites to follow this season. It's always difficult to kind of infiltrate these big syndicates and big groups and try and understand the workings or why they're going in certain directions. With Chelsea, I think I wouldn't say it's obvious, but there is a pattern there. And it's the fact that Chelsea's underlying metrics throughout this season have remained strong, regardless of the results. I had a look this morning and I'm still surprised, but they've pretty much been there all season. Chelsea are ranked 4th in expected points in the Premier League, which means, if results had played out how the performances have, they could easily be in that top 4 reckoning. Obviously, with our eyes, we can see something a little bit different at times. But that's basically, in my opinion, what drives most of it regarding Chelsea. Now, obviously, we can watch where the market goes, but there is, probably, I'm sure you don't mind me mentioning this, Dan, but a rival bookmaker called Pinnacle, who are basically the sharpest on the planet. I think it's always quite interesting to have a look at what prices that book is coming out with. They've got Chelsea around 5.1, 5.2. So again, I just kind of watch that between now and kickoff and just see where it goes, which way it moves. But I wouldn't be too surprised if Chelsea do go off slightly shorter than what they currently are. But it's not to say I want to be with them in this particular match. I think the news of Klopp is probably a negative from a Chelsea perspective. I know Liverpool have been able to play that game against Norwich at the weekend in the FA Cup, but in all honesty, it was probably a bit of an open goal to win that and progress in the FA Cup. And this is the real big business, particularly a night game in midweek against a team like Chelsea, where there still is a bit of animosity between the two clubs from the Benitez-Mourinho era. Shouldn't require too much from the fans to kind of get up for this and kind of give Klopp and his team a bit of a helping hand, really. So obviously it's very difficult to try and sort of predict how players and teams kind of go mentally from these kind of positions, but you would assume the players, the team, the club will sort of galvanise a little bit more towards Klopp and the end of the campaign and try and sort of finished the campaign successfully. They've got the opportunity to win possibly 4 trophies. They're favourites to win. Is it the League Cup? Yes, they will be, because it's Chelsea, and the Europa League. So they could easily end up with 3 or even 4 trophies if things continue the way they're going. So I think Liverpool deserve maximum respect, and I think team news as well is in their favour coming into this match, with Trent and Robertson returning. Endo's still a big miss in midfield. Salah, we assume, is still injured after that knock on international duty. So I've backed Liverpool to win this game and over 1.5 goals. Put it in about 4 to 5. I think it's about 5 to 6 now, 183. Yeah, to state the obvious, Liverpool at Anfield are pretty fearsome operators. 8 wins from 10, 21 from 29, going back to the start of last season. And I just find, even though I'm still expecting a little bit more from them between now and May, I haven't been overly convinced by Chelsea at all. They're so erratic, they're so inconsistent. You look at their recent performances, people are talking about Chelsea turning a corner because they blew a Borough team missing a dozen players away in the second leg of the League Cup tie. Did we kind of forget what happened in the first leg just a couple of weeks before that? The 3 Premier League wins came against Luton, Fulham and Palace. Well, they were all heavily favoured to win those matches. That wasn't a big surprise. They should be beating those teams quite comfortably, even with the budget, even with the players they got available to them. And for me, they're still a little bit too reliant on key individuals, and most notably that's Cole Palmer. For me, he's been carrying them a lot this campaign. I need to see a bit more from elsewhere in forward areas, and I also would sort of have a bit of criticism to Pochettino, because I think at times there's no clear plan, there's no clear approach to what they're trying to do. I know injuries haven't helped, but you could say the same about half a dozen other clubs in the Premier League this season, and I think their away record has to be questioned as well. 5 defeats in 10. Spurs, the only team they've beaten, in 13th or higher, and that comes with a massive asterisk as well. So yeah, I am quite positive about Liverpool. I'll be much more decisive about this match than I have the previous 2. I'm happy to back Liverpool and over 1.5 goals, eliminating that 1-0 home win. I know people will go, well, these 2 teams have drawn the last 7 games between them, so maybe Chelsea are that bogey team. Potentially they are a bogey team, but you know, the variables around this match are completely different to every other of those previous 7. Different coaches, different players. The last time they played each other was the opening day of the season. You know, you could almost write off the first 2 weeks of every season for every team, because you know things changed massively from there. So yeah, quite keen to be pro Liverpool. I think Chelsea would have been cursing their luck with the Klopp news developing on Friday, because it just adds an extra kind of element, I think, in Liverpool's favour coming into this game.
Yeah, take that, Adrian Clarke, a little dig on the head-to-head records there, but Adrian will keep providing, because we promise.
No, I think they do have value in certain spheres, but I just think if you're kind of looking at, they've drawn the last 7 games, so surely this game's going to be a draw again. It's just a bit lazy. It's just a bit wrong, because I can't even remember who was in charge of Chelsea 3 seasons ago when one of those matches might have taken place. Yeah. They've had that much change since then, so it's kind of irrelevant to me.
Yeah, let's lock in Liverpool over 1.5 goals, but a fun bet for Adrian. If you are looking for a big price, draw half time. A lot of the stats point in that direction. Liverpool full time. We'll go to Thursday night football here. We've got Wolves versus Manchester United. We'll take a look at the betting currently on the Matchup Betting Exchange. You can back Wolves 284, Manchester United 2.6 favourites here. The draw 3.75. Both teams to score, yes, 165. The Asian handicap line is a draw no bet market, with United favoured at 187, and the goal line 2.5, 175 for the over. Market, it had a chance to really unravel for Manchester United yesterday. I know you're not a big man for watching all the cup matches, but at 2-2 there, I was thinking the Marcus Rashford news. I was thinking a lot of things here if Newport got the next goal, but United did get through the game. Looking for a bet on this game. Which side are you trying to favour with?
More than happy to be with Wolves as home underdogs. I will be backing Wolves plus a quarter on the Asian handicap, around about 4 to 5, 1.8. Possibly it might be just below that, but again, I just watched the market before Thursday. You might get a better price. I wouldn't put anyone off backing Wolves to win this game at 285 or around that price, 290, for a number of reasons, really. First of all, there's only 3 points between these 2 teams in the Premier League table. And if we remember, these 2 teams played each other on the opening weekend of the season. Wolves lost their manager on the eve of the campaign. Gary O'Neill stepped in and engineered a remarkably good performance at Old Trafford, where Wolves deserved to at least take something from it, possibly all 3 points, let alone 1, and they lost the game. So had they got a draw in that game, these 2 teams would be locked on 30 points in mid-table. Now, if you look at the underlying metrics of both sides so far this season, again, they're pretty much neck and neck. I've got United favoured by 0.75 expected points more than Wolves. So effectively equal. If anything, United possibly 1 point better off. So I think it's fair to say, if we took out the names of both of these two teams, we ignored the wage bills and the budgets that both have to play, and went purely off performances, purely off the eye test, and purely what the two coaches have managed to achieve so far this season, I think they could or should be rated quite close to being equal. And I think it's a theory that's been backed up by my tissue prices. I had Wolves coming in at 2.35. I had Man United at 3.0. So based on metrics and all the metrics above and everything I sort of discussed there, if you think both teams are rated about equal, Wolves should be 225, 230-ish. I've got them 235. The market's got them at 285. So more than happy to have them on side here, especially as they've been at their best at Molineux. They're fresh off that big win at West Brom. They have only lost twice at home all season under Gary O'Neill in the Premier League, and they've given the big boys all sorts of problems too. Spurs, Chelsea, City beaten, Villa, Newcastle held, Liverpool were given an almighty first half at Molineux earlier on in the campaign before bringing on the cavalry in the second half and getting the job done. And of those two defeats, both came in their opening two home games so far this season. So they've actually gone 8 unbeaten home games now in the Premier League, 5 wins, 3 draws. Since the start of December, only Liverpool have amassed more Premier League points than Wolves, 4 wins, 2 draws, just the 1 defeat. It's now 4 defeats in 16 Premier League games across all venues. So I think they deserve a little bit more respect than what the market is giving them against the United side, who we've talked about almost routinely about being inconsistent, erratic, untrustworthy. As you say, at one stage at the weekend, it looked like they were on the verge of something completely embarrassing against Newport. They managed to scramble their way out of it. But if you exclude the bottom 4, United have lost 5 of 7 away league games. They've picked up 1 point from the last 4 on the road, scoring just once. They've only won by a margin of 2 goals once across all venues in the Premier League. And their goal difference, which I always find quite telling, is -5. They're the only top half team with a minus goal difference. And Luton have scored the same amount of goals as them in the Premier League, 24. So I've got United ranked 16th on expected points away from home with a minus 0.58 XG per game average. That's basically conceding 0.6 expected goals more than their opposition when playing away on a per game basis. That's quite significant. So it's just not conducive to be backing a team around these kind of prices as favourites away from home, or even a team who have aspirations of finishing the top 4 or even the top 6. It's not good enough. And for that reason, I'm happy to oppose them.
Yeah, Wolves plus a quarter of a goal in the Asian handicap, 177. And it's the bet for you as well, Adrian.
Yeah, it really stood out, this one. I think that, yeah, Wolves with the handicap at a backable price has to be taken on, really. I mean, you can't trust Manchester United. I mean, they lost at Forest, didn't they? 2-1, 2-0 at West Ham. Goalless draw at Liverpool that no one saw coming. And then the 1-0 at Newcastle as well. So yeah, it's and the Rashford thing is destabilising again, isn't it? I felt sorry for Ten Hag, to be honest.
Yeah. What do you make of that?
It's a disgrace.
Twitter knew before he knew, basically,
isn't it? Disgrace, isn't it? It feels like Rashford is sabotaging his own career. His own status at Manchester United. Whether you like the manager or not, you can't be doing those kind of things. You're never going to get away with it in this era. I mean, years ago when I was playing, yeah, you probably could. Before camera phones and whatnot, but Marcus Rashford is always going to get stitched up if he wants to take a gamble and have a night out that he shouldn't have. And there's a list of them now, aren't there? And Ten Hag rightly is fed up of it. And it's not great. It's because he kind of needs Rashford. He needs the good Rashford in his team, doesn't he? And he can't pick him. I absolutely would have left him out of the weekend, and I'd probably leave him out for the next few weeks as well, because it's very unprofessional from him. But if you want to talk about Wolves, really like what they're doing. Neto's massive. Really love Neto. I think he's a top player, and he gives Wolves that extra bit of cutting edge with his speed. You've obviously got Cunha, who's having a blinding season, makes things happen with his sort of mazy dribbles. Well, Neto has got that electrifying speed, hasn't he, to slice anybody open. So yeah, off the back of that West Brom win, and some good performances lately. I think they'll be really fancying this. And obviously, if we get them on the handicap, it means that United have got to win. And if Wolves do what they've done in every home game so far this season, and that's score, then United need to score 2 for this bet to lose, don't they? And look, you have to go. I think since mid-September, when they lost to Liverpool, only one team scored more than 1 goal at Molineux, and that's Newcastle. But it was a 2-2 draw. So this bet wins. Every home game going back to that Liverpool defeat, which seems a long time ago. So yeah, Wolves plus a quarter. It's definitely appealing this weekend. Or not this weekend, this midweek. Yeah.
This midweek. Yeah, no, it's the weekend football podcast on a Monday, believe it or not, covering midweek football. But there you go. Wolves plus a quarter, Asian handicap, 177. Before we move on, we've got one more Premier League bet, EFL bet. Then we're going to do long shots on best bets. We've about 40 odd watching on the live stream. If you take 2 seconds, hit that like button, be much appreciated. And same if anyone's watching it back. And do leave a comment or a question for the guys. We'll do our best to get it to it between now and the end of the show or later on in the season. Mark, we'll go to you because it's the last Premier League pick here. Tottenham Hotspur versus Brentford. And you like Spurs here, combining it with over 1.5 goals as well.
Yeah, it comes in at 192. That's a price I'm happy to back. Spurs failed to fire against Man City on Friday night in the FA Cup. Just the one attempt across 90 minutes. Not your standard Ange Ball performance, but I think it owed more to Man City's excellence. In all honesty, I thought they were professional, controlled, a class apart, really, and they showed the standards that Spurs are looking to try and reach at some stage, but they're still quite a distance apart, really. But I think they'll be eager to bounce back this midweek, and it feels like a good opportunity to do so. Against the Brentford side, I'd be happy to oppose at the minute. I know traditionally Brentford, as a big away underdog, can be very awkward, but they are enduring a pretty tough campaign with injuries and suspensions biting. And more recently, I've just felt they've become a little bit fragile, a little bit vulnerable, and they feel beatable. The Forest win wasn't completely convincing. Forest missing a load of key players, as we talked about earlier on in the show, and it did require a bit of sort of Ivan Toney gamesmanship too. So, but even still, they've crossed their last 9 Premier League games. They've lost 7 of those, and their away record this season is 6 defeats in 8 since August. They've only been to 1 top 6 team away already so far this campaign too. So the schedule hasn't been that difficult, and they've been losing games quite considerably and consistently. Whereas Spurs are 7 from 10 at home. They are 10 from 12 against teams in 10th and below across all venues. They've scored twice more in 11 of those 12 games as well. And overall, they scored twice more in 15 of 21. And I just think with that sort of firepower against a Bees team with just 3 clean sheets, still missing key players across the back line. Also, Sergi Reguilon's unable to play here because of the loan deal with Spurs. So they're going to be sort of down to the bare bones yet again. I just think that Tottenham team isn't far off the best 11 now. Son missing, obviously, and bar Bissouma, I think they're pretty much at their full throttle now. Bentancur back in midfield is an upgrade on what they've got already. So I think Spurs score twice here, and if they do so, Brentford are going to have to play very, very well to match them. So it's Tottenham score twice, they win the game for me. So I'm happy to back the over 1.5 goals alongside the home win.
Okay, 192 currently on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Adrian Clarke, take it away with Super Leeds away to Bristol City.
Yeah, look, big game. They have to just keep winning, Leeds United, don't they? That's what they've got to do. And they've been on a good run of form. I've seen them in the flesh a couple of times lately, and been really impressed actually, especially with the quality of the forwards. O'Haire, really enjoy watching him. Somerville, fantastic. Patrick Bamford's been in good form as well. Dan James as well, but I think he is a fitness doubt for this game. But yeah, I want to back Leeds to win the game, but I absolutely don't think it will be a crazy high scoring game. So I'm going to go with Leeds and under 4.5 goals. If we start with the unders, Bristol City matches average the lowest amount in the Championship, just 2.21 goals per game involving Bristol City. They're a bit light on goals at the moment, but they do keep teams at bay by and large. 82% of Bristol City's matches this season have gone under 4.5. 86% of Leeds matches have gone under 4.5. So that feels like quite a sure thing here. And then you're looking to pair it with the favourites. For me, I make Leeds favourites for two reasons. One, they've got better individual players, but the other is because both teams are defending pretty well at the moment. That's not an issue. But Leeds are full of goals. Bristol City are not full of goals. They've only scored 3 goals in their last 7 matches. They've really dried up of late. There've been, there's been a few 0-0ers, 1-0 defeats, 1-1 draws. It's been a little bit of a grind. And for me, Leeds are almost always going to score because of their quality in forward areas. They've scored in 9 of their last 10 matches. I saw them win well at Cardiff, and that they won well against Peterborough as well in the cup not so long ago. So yeah, the away concerns seem to have faded a little bit. So yeah, I think they can go to Aston Gate, Leeds United, and win the game, but it won't be easy. So yeah, Bristol City to get beaten by Leeds United, but under 4.5 goals.
Let's lock it in. We'll lock it in at 194. Let's move on to best long shots and have a look at this long shots record throughout the season. Between Adrian Clarke and Mark O'Haire, 10 wins, 31 defeats. That's an odd number because Mark O'Haire has an AFCON sweat at the moment. That's made the last 16. They're only 3 games away from a payout, Mark, but we'll work all that out if we need to be. But if you had a £20 stake on each of these bets on the Match of Betting Exchange, you'd first of all invariably be getting best price. But if you put the 2% commission included that as well, you'd still be up over £400, which is quite decent, guys, I would say. I'm excited by these 2 shouts here. Maybe start with you, Adrian, because it's a new match we haven't covered yet.
Yeah.
Luton and both teams to score versus Brighton. If you said this at the start of the season, first of all, it'd be a lot bigger price, but I don't think people would be backing it. But now I can sort of see the case because Brighton have been a bit meh the last few games.
Exactly. Yeah, look, I saw Brighton at the weekend in the flesh, and they were good. They beat Sheffield United 5-2. That said, 2 penalties and 1 absolute worldie from Buonanotte. So yeah, maybe that score flattered them. They certainly weren't secure at the back. Brighton, Sheffield United, who we all know that they're a pretty weak side. Then they're weaker than Luton. Well, Sheffield United scored 2, probably should have scored 4. I would say in the game without even playing that well. So yeah, I think Luton can score here. I really do, and I think they have a shot at winning the game. Luton have scored in 10 of their last 11 matches in all competitions. Their only blank, funnily enough, was against Bolton of all teams. So that's a strange one. At Kenilworth Road, 8 out of 10 matches have seen both teams to score land. So again, the odds in our favour that both teams might score here. We know that Brighton, don't keep many clean sheets away, just one in 10. And Brighton don't win that many away either. Only 3 wins from 10 road trips this season. And if you look at the form guide as well, guys, they're level across the last 8 games. They've both got the same amount of points. So you got Brighton. We all like Brighton. We all rate Brighton. But across the last 8 games, Luton have been every bit as good as they have, and they've been scoring goals and been causing teams problems. We saw what they did to Everton in the cup at the weekend, and they scored a couple of goals. Could have scored more, based on the bits that I saw of the match. And I also think that Brighton are, obviously we know they're brilliant passing out from the back and playing through midfield, but Luton are so abrasive, aren't they? So if anyone can sort of disrupt their flow, I kind of would say that Luton might be the type of team to do that. And I absolutely think that Luton can cause problems when they put the ball in the box. I saw it with my own eyes at the weekend. When Sheffield United put balls into the box, they didn't look that comfy. And Luton are significantly stronger inside the box, I think, than the Blades are. So, yeah, I think we can see goals here. Obviously, we've had a couple of 0-0ers in a row for Brighton in the Prem. That's not going to last. That can't last. This is deserving.
Unsustainable, that, yeah.
We're going to revert to the norm here. I think both teams will score. And look, if you pair it with a Luton win, which I think is possible, 8.2. Yes, please. Yeah, let's have a bit of fun.
We set an odds limit ourselves just to have something to look at, so you can just go for Luton if you want. A couple of things from the Brighton. Firstly, comment here. Adrian absolutely teeing enough for Daniel to get his Evan Ferguson mention in. Well, it was great, Adrian, to see Evan and João Pedro played. It's not an either or. They can both play together. I've been telling everybody this.
Yeah, I sat in on the press conference afterwards, and he was asked about Evan Ferguson, and he said he was brilliant in the game. Now, I wouldn't have said he was brilliant, but he was good. No, he did, because I was quite critical of his play outside the box in that piece I wrote recently, but he was much better. He got really involved in the build up, and I thought he was good on the day. And I think him and Pedro moving forwards is probably the way forward for Brighton. But this is tough. Under the lights at Kenilworth Road, they can make it hard for everybody. We've seen it already this season, and I think they can make it hard for Brighton.
Yeah, they could still stay up as well in the Premier League. Absolutely in the hunt there. And the other thing I was going to mention on Brighton, they put a video up on social of their highlights against Wolves, Mark, and it basically was the referee blowing his whistle to start the game, the referee blowing his whistle to end the game. I had the misfortune of sitting through all 90 minutes of that as well, so I felt that a lot. But Wolves, game we covered, is going to be your best long shot, but also your best bet, so you can lead into those two there. You're going doubling down on Wolves against Manchester United this week.
So anti-United, isn't he? So anti-Man United.
Anti-United angle, isn't it?
All eggs in the Wolves basket, which could go one of two ways, obviously. Yeah, I have to give a shout to Sheffield United, though. They were very, very close and in consideration for my long shot at 6.6 away at Crystal Palace, which feels slightly big. I would not be touching Palace at sub 1.7. But yeah, I'm going to back Wolves to win and both teams to score in this game. It comes in at 5.2, so a little bit shorter than perhaps I'd hoped we'd get closer to the 5-1 stage. But as I said earlier, they're outsiders at home to Manchester United, and that doesn't feel fair based on what they've achieved so far this season. I think they've been coping pretty well without Hwang. Obviously, Neto's come back into the team and made an immediate impact, especially at the weekend too. So I've got no qualms about them going forward and troubling this Manchester United team. And ultimately, BTTS has been such a regular feature of Wolves matches so far this season. 15 of 21 games have seen both sides oblige. If we exclude the bottom six, all of Wolves' victories so far this season have also included both teams to score as well. And whilst United aren't always involved in goal-heavy games away from Old Trafford, they should expect to score here. Wolves have only kept 4 clean sheets themselves, so I think it ties in quite nicely. I expect Wolves will have to score at least twice to win the game, and United should be capable of scoring too. So 5.2 on the Wolves win and BTTS. And yeah, just to double down, I'll back Wolves plus a quarter as my best bet. For all the reasons I've outlined already, really. I just think across the board, they've been as good as, if not better, than Manchester United. I've got massive doubts about United's ability away from Old Trafford. And I think Wolves have proven they like the spotlight as being underdogs at Molineux. They've given a lot of the big boys some really, really tough times at Molineux so far this season under Gary O'Neill. There's absolutely no reason why they can't do similar to Manchester United. And we're making money as long as they don't lose at home to United on Thursday night. So Wolves plus a quarter.
Okay, and final bet and the best bet for Adrian on the midweek card is the EFL Championship. So take it away on Coventry City. This is a team that's improved in recent weeks that we've spoken about already on the podcast before.
Yeah, I feel anti-Bristol City here. We're playing twice in midweek, playing twice before the weekend, which is quite remarkable. Tuesday, Friday, but
if they're back-to-back wins, you're in trouble, Adrian, I think.
Yeah, massively. It's not as if they're playing poorly either. They're not scoring goals, Bristol City, which is one of the main reasons why I am opposing them in both games. But yeah, performance levels haven't been that bad. But I just don't. I see them losing both occasions because Leeds are flying at the moment. And I tell you what, so are Coventry. They've scored in 14 successive matches, Coventry City, in all competitions. I've just talked about Bristol City, 3 goals in 7 matches. Well, look, Coventry might only need 1 to take the points here. They're unbeaten in 9 games in the Championship, Coventry. At home, they concede very few goals. Bristol City are 12th, and I was looking at how Coventry have fared at home against teams outside the top 10. And they've conceded 3 goals in 8 home games against teams outside the top 10. Coventry, really, really solid. The games they're supposed to win at home, they win them, and they usually win them to 0. It's look, and I just look at the Championship, which is such a hard league. But Coventry across the last 12 games, so it's quite a good chunk of the season. This across the last 12 games, only 1 team has accrued more points than Coventry City, and that's Southampton, and they've got 1 point more than Coventry across that 12-game period. They've been in phenomenal form. I think the goal difference is incredibly healthy as well, 24-9 across that 12-game period. They rested a lot of players at the weekend against Sheffield Wednesday in the Cup as well. So, and Bristol City have got a game in between. So all these factors sort of add up for me and point towards a pretty routine home win from Mark Robbins' side. And look, to get them at 1.88, you know, given all the praise I've just lavished, given the stats in their favour, I think is quite nice, really. 1.88 is a good price on them, which is why it's my best bet.
Okay, Coventry 188 to beat Bristol City and Wolves on the Asian handicap, plus a quarter a goal for Mark O'Haire. That's half your bet on drawn a bet and half your bet on double chance effectively. My thanks to Mark and Adrian. It's great having Mark and Adrian back. It's great having the Premier League back. Most importantly, as Adrian alluded to, it's great having Evan Ferguson back, starting for Brighton, Hove and Albion, because all is right in the world. But we will be back recording Thursday, all going well, so stay tuned for that. We'll be previewing a busy weekend, and as Mark said at the start, it's all go then for the next few months, but we're very much looking forward to it on the Matchbook Betting Podcast. If having a bet across the week on the Matchbook Betting Exchange, enjoy it. Let's hope it enhances the viewing experience, so please do so responsibly. We'll chat to you Thursday. Bye-bye.